The morning sun had just begun to rise over the quiet streets when Maya Thompson stepped out of her small apartment, the chill of dawn brushing against her cheeks. She tightened her worn denim jacket and started her usual walk to the diner where she worked as a waitress. Her route always took her through Maplewood Park, a place that had become strangely meaningful to her over the past few months. Because every morning, without fail, she'd see the same elderly man sitting on the same park bench near the pond. He was always there before her. An old man in a faded brown coat, a wool cap pulled low over his thinning hair, and a cane resting beside him. He'd watch the ducks glide across the water, a small smile touching his lips, though there was a loneliness in his eyes that Maya couldn't ignore. The first time she stopped was by accident. She had been rushing past when she saw him struggling to twist the lid off a small jar of jam. His hands trembled with the effort, and the jar slipped, nearly falling to the ground. Maya didn't think twice. She stepped forward, caught it, and said softly, "Here, let me help you." The man looked up, startled, then smiled in gratitude. "Oh, bless you, dear. These old fingers don't work like they used to." Maya twisted the lid off easily and handed it back to him. "There you go, thank you," he said, his voice gentle but worn with age. "You're kind. Not many young people stop to help anymore." She smiled. "I was heading to work anyway. It's no trouble." That simple act turned into a conversation. She learned his name was Henry Wallace. He was 81, widowed, and had lived in the same neighborhood for nearly 50 years. He loved to feed the ducks, watch people pass by, and remember better times. Something about him, his gentle manners, his soft laugh, made Maya want to stay and listen. The next morning, she brought him a cup of coffee from the diner before her shift. "For you," she said. He looked at her with surprise. "You didn't have to do that. I wanted to," she said. "You remind me of my grandfather. He passed away a few years ago." From then on, stopping to talk to Henry became part of her day. She'd sit with him for 10 minutes before work, sometimes longer if she could spare it. He told her stories about his wife, Margaret, how they met at a dance in 1963, how she laughed like sunshine, how empty the house had felt since she passed away 5 years ago. "You must have loved her very much," Maya said one morning. "With all my heart," Henry replied softly. "When you spend 50 years beside someone, you don't stop loving them just because they're gone. You just learn to love the silence they leave behind." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. She didn't say anything, but she reached out and gently patted his hand. As the weeks passed, she noticed he was getting weaker. His hands shook more, his breath came shorter, and some mornings he looked pale as paper. Once, she found him shivering in the cold and immediately took off her scarf to wrap around his neck. "You'll catch your death sitting out here like this," she scolded lightly. Henry chuckled. "If I die feeding ducks, that's a fine way to go." She rolled her eyes but smiled. "Don't say that, you're not going anywhere." But one day, when she arrived at the park, Henry wasn't there. She waited 10 minutes, then 20, her heart tightening. Finally, she decided to check on him. She knew where he lived. A small, old apartment building a few blocks away. She'd walked him there once when he wasn't feeling well. When she reached his door, she knocked, but there was no answer. She hesitated, then tried the handle. It was unlocked. "Mr. Wallace," she called softly, stepping inside. The apartment was dim, and the air smelled faintly of tea and dust. She found him lying on the couch, his breathing shallow. Panic rose in her chest. "Oh my God, Henry." She hurried to his side. His eyes fluttered open. "Maya," he whispered weakly. "Didn't mean to scare you. Just got a bit dizzy." "You need a doctor," she said firmly, grabbing her phone. He tried to protest, but she wouldn't listen. An hour later, paramedics arrived and took him to the hospital. She followed the ambulance, holding his hand the whole way. When the doctor came out, he told her Henry was dehydrated and weak but would recover with rest and care. Maya stayed by his bedside, making sure he had everything he needed. She didn't leave until the nurse gently told her visiting hours were over. Over the next few days, she visited every morning before work. She brought books, crossword puzzles, and his favorite biscuits from the diner. Henry would always greet her with a smile. "You're too good to an old fool like me," he said once. "You're not a fool," she said. "You're family now." He blinked, his eyes moistening. "That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in a long time." But everything changed the morning his grandson arrived. Maya was tidying up the table beside Henry's hospital bed when the door opened, and 3 men walked in. One was young, in his early 30s, sharply dressed in a dark suit. Behind him were two older men carrying briefcases. The young man looked around the room, his gaze settling on Maya. "Grandpa," he said curtly. Henry's eyes brightened. "Ethan, my boy, I didn't think you'd come." Ethan's face softened briefly before hardening again. "I came as soon as I heard." Then he looked at Maya. "And you are?" "I'm Maya," she said nervously. "I've been helping your grandfather. We met months ago at the park." "Helping him?" Ethan repeated, his voice skeptical. "In what way?" "Just bringing him meals, checking in on him. He wasn't doing well." Ethan exchanged a glance with one of the men behind him. "These are my lawyers," he said. "Mr. Collins, Mr. Price." Maya frowned slightly. "Lawyers? Why?" Ethan cut her off. "My grandfather is a very wealthy man, Miss Thompson." "Maya Thompson." "Yes, Miss Thompson," he said coolly. "I'm sure you've been very kind. But we'll be taking over his care from now on. You don't need to involve yourself any further." Maya blinked, taken aback. "Excuse me, I'm not here for money. I'm just..." He interrupted again, sharper this time. "You expect me to believe you've been spending all this time with him out of pure kindness?" Henry sat up slightly, anger flashing in his tired eyes. "Ethan, that's enough. Maya's done more for me than you have in years. Don't talk to her like that." "Grandpa," Ethan said quietly, "you're not thinking clearly. People like her." "People like her," Maya repeated, her voice trembling. "I've cared for him when no one else did. I never asked for anything." Ethan's face softened for a moment, as if guilt flickered in his chest, but then he nodded to his lawyers. "We'll sort this out. Please leave your contact information with the front desk." Maya could hardly breathe. She looked at Henry, whose eyes were pleading. "Don't go," he whispered. She swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "I should," she said softly. "You need your family." Then she walked out of the room, the sound of her footsteps echoing down the hallway. She didn't look back, though Henry's faint voice called after her. Outside the hospital, the cold wind hit her face, and she wiped her tears away. She had no idea that her kindness had set something in motion, something that would change both of their lives forever.